You are listening now to the Spirituality Now podcast, the show that is solely focused on practical spirituality, leadership, and mindset skills with the aim and purpose of supporting you master your life. Welcome to the Spirituality Now podcast. Welcome to the Spirituality Now podcast. I am your host, Yvonne de la Flor. And I like to say something before I do all the intros, all of that already, the pre-recorded versions have already spoken before me. Is that this podcast is not really about the typical phrase spirituality, the misconception of spirituality, the lack of functionality spirituality, or anything that spirituality links it to a guru, to a mudra, to a meditation, even to sage, crystals, angels or not. The spirituality that I'm intended to, one, debunk, obviously, because I just said it, and the other one, present or introduce, includes it all. Leadership, mindset, hardship, darkness, light, truly is the spirituality of being human. I think the word spirituality has been so misused that it segregates people, and then it gives some of us a higher than thou type of feeling, right? Like, I'm spiritual and you are not. Or if I don't meditate, or I don't practice Zen, or I'm not in the lineage of the Japanese or the Shaolin, that, I'm speaking obviously of experience, or if I'm not praying to the angels, doing altars when the full moon arises, etc. That's not spiritual. No, that's some of the times that's called paganism, and some of the times that's called like an idolatry or a lack of understanding what true spirituality is, which in our way of seeing it is truly the pursuit of something called in Buddhism that I love, called bodhicitta, the return or the awareness or the unfoldment of our true Buddha, Christ nature within, by doing the personal work. And sometimes that personal work is washing the dishes, being a parent, paying bills, and just being present to the moment, which is what true spirituality is, by taking action. Anyways, so I just wanted to debunk a little bit. We have a name in our podcast that I chose. Our podcast used to be called Sovereign Futures. And some people have told me you should have kept that name. It's more brandable, it's more market-wise useful, it sells more, but I'm not here for that. And the challenge that we have with the name Spirituality Now is all of the misconceptions of the word spirituality itself. And for some reason, I'm here to debunk and to introduce other ways of seeing it. Anyways, so welcome to the show. We're a philanthropic-based podcast. We are self-produced by our production company, Brilliant Futures Productions, with an incredible team. I am if there was a scale hierarchy on the team, I will be like in the lower, because the top of the tops are the people that are behind this, that make this happen. So I'm so grateful for the whole team. And we're sponsored by one of our companies, De La Flor Teaches International, by the network television Human Empowerment TV. And we are self-sponsored in a way so that we don't bring you commercials. And we don't sell things that you don't need. And you get the wisdom of our guests just purely and solely at the comfort of your chosen selective hearing and earring. So again, welcome to the show. And today I have a dear friend and also has been invited as a guest of our television network as a presenter, and who I have been witnessing of her rise, of her willingness to serve humanity and her ability to show up, from not showing up to consistently showing up. That's very remarkable. So let me introduce her to you. My guest today is Andrea, our guest today, not mine. Our guest today, her name is Andrea Tellechea. Andrea is a channel, medium, and spiritual coach. She was born with this amazing gift of seeing, hearing, and tuning into what some of us don't tune into. Since she was a little girl, Andrea could see, what we consider to be angels, archangels, and what is known as ascended masters, like the Holy Mother, the Virgin Mary, and Jesus. As she grew older, she disconnected herself, as often it happens, from these light beings and lived her life trying to reach society's expectations. Oh, that gave me shivers. But during her pregnancy, which was a high risk pregnancy, the Virgin Mary appeared to her once more and told her she and her baby were going to be okay. After this experience, Andrea began reconnected with her own spirituality. Little by little, she began to listen to herself, trust her intuition, and ignore society's expectation, which is, that gives me shivers. Shivers. Through different mentorships, coachings, and certifications, she has become her true self. No longer afraid of what others may think, kudos for that. She currently channels Archangels and Ascended Masters to help others recover their inner peace. She guides people through tarot readings, codes, sacred geometry codes, and meditations. No matter what tool she uses, she's always channeling light and light beings. Currently, she lives in Mexico City with her beloved daughter, Andrea, and she's a recurrent host on the network television Human Empowerment. Andrea, welcome to the show, sweetheart.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful for being here with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. And so let's start from the beginning. Of course, your bio already shares with us a little bit of your background and a little bit of the experiences you had as a child, of being connected, and then you wanting to fit society expectations. We're gonna go right there to the juice of to the open wound. Let's go and put some lemon in it, because I think that's where a lot of us are in humanity, no matter the age. So let's go back there when you were, you are seeing angels, you are seeing connecting with the Holy Mother, with Jesus, etc., and suddenly that's lost temporarily or blinded temporarily because of you wanting to fit society expectations. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I think that happens to all human beings. As children, we're very innocent. We have this ability of not caring what others might think. You are actually genuine when you're a child. You don't do things to get check marks, to check boxes. You just do it because it feels good for you. So when I started growing up, at the beginning, I was a teenager and I was into Reiki and into mandalas and into these dream catchers and Buddhist monks. It was like it was a moment where everyone was saving Tibet. So even when monks from Tibet came to Mexico, I would go with them and I would meditate with them, and I was 15. And the shock came when suddenly at school, they would ask me, and why didn't you come yesterday? Yeah, because I was meditating with a monk, or because I was learning how to heal others through energy, or because I was with crystals. And so if I said those things, people would look at me like, what's this? And of course, there was a part of me that wanted to belong. And I wasn't going to belong if I stuck to that. I had to do other things. I had to go shopping. I had to have boyfriends. I had to go clubbing. I had to party. I had to. So eventually, the belonging part started to grow and grow and grow and became much more important than actually doing something that I liked. So I literally just forgot about all of that. And I started doing what society wanted me to do. I started filling in the check boxes. I started doing what I was expected to do. I was expected to finish high school. I was expected to go to college. I was expected to have a master's degree. I was expected to have a job, then to get married, to have kids. And I was stuck in this loop. I was stuck in this loop so deep that I couldn't even recognize myself. I became what I thought society wanted me to be. I was this straight A student. I had a really good job. I bought myself a new car eventually. I purchased, Louis Vuitton bags and Chanel and everything. And I
Andrea,
traveled.
a
I
little part
traveled.
of me is like, yes, I understand. I've done it all. Yes.
I traveled a lot. You know, Instagram didn't exist, but if it had existed back then, I would have had like millions of followers just because I was like in the really fancy restaurant and in the really fancy hotel, and I thought that was going to fulfill me, but deep inside I was really empty. I didn't like myself. I had no connection with myself, and there were moments in which I thought that it was even better if I died. So
Wow.
throughout my since I was like 22 through 30, sort of, I was living in depression. I didn't like my life. I didn't like what I did. I Nothing was good enough. But I thought that nothing was good enough for the people around me, for my parents, for my grandmother, for my family, for my friends, for my coworkers, until I realized that it was not good enough for me. But it took me a very long time to get there. It took me years to get there, to actually understand what the problem was. I went to therapies. I even took medicines. It wasn't, it was a very dark time for me. I the decisions that I made throughout those years were not the most positive for me. I started, it wasn't nice. It wasn't a nice moment. And at the end, my mind would always take me to the same place. What if I died? What if I was gone? I think it would be better. So, of course, during this time, I I wasn't connected to anything. All those angels, archangels, light beings that I used to see as a little girl, that I used to hear, they they were numbed. I numbed them by myself. And they were still there because I do remember that clubbing, there would be a time or a moment where I would even stop drinking, like this is really the last one. Nothing ever happened to me. I was actually guarded by all of them. And of course, the moment I got these thoughts, this dying wishes thoughts, there was always someone, something that would return me to reality, even if it was for only a few seconds. But I would be brought back here. So, and everything was just to belong. And everything was just because I wanted people to accept me. I wanted the golden star. I wanted acceptance and belonging. And I couldn't have been more wrong.
Wow, that's so well said. I was making notes. Very eloquent, very succinct, and actually really truthful, for what society is living. And actually, this is a very helpful map for those who are losing themselves to social media, to what one of my mentors, Byron Katie, used to say, that the three diseases of mankind were the desperate search outside of oneself of love, approval, and appreciation. But the way you are framing it into, like, you truly, I love, I'm reading my notes here, that you wanting to belong so much, not only to them, but to what they expected of you. I mean, oh, that crushed my heart. And how many people in the world think that it would be better to die? So, do you think that that desire to die was to die to the self that you were not?
Probably, probably that was my death wish. I didn't want to be that Andrea anymore. I knew that she was just like made up like a Barbie doll that you dress up, that you accessorize, that you dress up. I don't know. That wasn't the true self. And I think this death wish, exactly right now, looking at from from a different perspective and from a different angle, of course that was it. I was so unhappy being who I was that I didn't want to be that person anymore, but I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to break that cycle. Because once you get into the cycle of I want to get accepted, I want to be part of, it's really hard to leave it. It's really hard to go back to your true self. It's not an easy path. It's not an easy thing to do. It doesn't, I mean, you don't go to sleep and then wake up and say, hey, it's me again. It's not like that. And it took a lot of work, a lot of personal work to get to where I am right now.
Wow, Andrea, this is blowing my mind. I've known you for a while now. You know how much deeply I love you and I respect you.
Oh, I
And
love you too.
yeah, so this is the podcast of I loves. No, but I love this. I love to talk about this dead wish because it's really deep and clear what you are sharing. And this dead wish of you not liking who you were, doing a lot of work, which is something that people want the rewards of hard work, but rarely want to do the hard work. I mean, this is, I don't know if it's our culture, no one to blame in here, is the way that most of society is set up for immediate gratification instead of delayed gratification, which is very sustainable. But when you say the dead wish, all my mind could think of the dead wish led me to the life gift. So this dead wish of yours, of course, you did the work. Of course, you went through the portal of suffering, and we still do. I mean, I don't know if any human, unless Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, who found the path of ultimate liberation and from suffering itself, but no, I don't know if suffering disappearance, but we're going through that. But that dead wish brought you to this life gift that right now you are so much in tune with. And so, what happened? How did you begin the process of, I don't like the word reconnection because I don't really believe that we're disconnected, but of connecting again with that or those which never left you? What happened? Like, was there a moment that you were like, I wish to die, and suddenly you heard a voice, Andrea, I'm here?
No, no, no. It wasn't like that, because one of the things that come with this gift is my intuition has always been very strong. What happened when I was going through these years that I didn't listen to my intuition, I didn't pay attention to it, but it was still there. The voices were still there. And the thing about seeing things that are not from our realm or our dimension is that you also get to see the dark things, not only the light. So while I was going through this, of course, I would see shadows. I would see, literally, like the movie, I see dead people. I would walk and I would feel them and I would sense them. And of course, it wasn't something nice. But of course, I wasn't vibrating in something nice. Of course, everything that I would see wasn't going to be nice. And it wasn't until I still listen to these voices. I remember when I met my ex-husband, I opened the door and the first thing that I heard was, close it. Don't go out with him. And of course, I didn't listen. And I didn't listen.
Okay, the dirty laundry in the Spirituality Now podcast, dirty laundry. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you right there, or not, but do you know? I'm not going to say which marriage, but in one of my marriages, I had two. I learned my lesson. I don't need the third time as a charm. Two time was the charm, but I heard the voice too. Like I actually literally heard the voice. You're here for the purpose of working together, not to marry together. Don't marry. And I was like, ooh, So you heard that, and
I
what
heard
happened?
that voice. I got married. It wasn't a good marriage, but I got pregnant. And since I got pregnant, things started to change because it was a high risk pregnancy. I had preeclampsia. I'm not sure if you say it like that in English, but also my daughter would not grow. she was like really tiny and she wouldn't grow, and they didn't know why she wouldn't grow. So they made like a zillion trillion studies, blood tests and ultrasounds and this and that, because they didn't know what was going on. And one night I was really scared. I went to the Basilica of the Virgin of Guadalupe. I'm a true believer of her because she was the first ascended master that I ever saw as a girl. And I always loved that place. I love going there. So obviously I was scared. I went there and I prayed to her for my baby. I didn't care about me. I only thought about her. I didn't know it was a her at that point, but I just cared about this baby. I didn't want the baby to be sick or something. I wanted the baby to be okay. So I told the Virgin, like, please help me. Please help me. Please let this be a good pregnancy. Please let her be born. Because by this time, my ex-husband had said that if the baby had any genetic malfunctions or genetic problems like Down syndrome, that I had to abort, and that he would not accept the baby. So I had all of this like pressure. And that night in my sleep, as many of my visions, they come at night, I saw the Virgin and she told me, your baby girl is going to be okay. I didn't know she was a girl. Your baby girl is going to be okay. Like 3 days later, I got some of my blood test results. They said that it wasn't Down syndrome and that it was a girl. I already knew it was a girl, so I chose to name her Maya. Maya is Mary in Basque, because it
Ah,
was my way to honor Virgin Mary for helping me and for telling me that things were going to be okay. And yes, it was a bumpy ride. It was a bumpy pregnancy, but my daughter's 9 years old
Maya.
and she's fine. So that was my first re-encounter with these beings, with these light beings.
But I love that. I love that, about the child and about you said, that you heard a voice of like, yours was more metaphoric, right? Close the door. Me, it was direct. Don't get married. And I was like, like the sheep to the slaughter. Take me, take me. But I love what the universe does, and see if this is right for you. You got pregnant. I got pregnant too after making the decision of opposite of the direction of the infinite intelligence space or the higher voice or God or those angels, and that procure harmony in the universe. But for me, what I found out of getting pregnant or what followed after a poor decision was that the universe, in its infinite intelligence and mathematical equation, by the universal laws that operates the universe, will always seek to harmonize and to evolve. So it will create out of the most atrocious thing some kind of amendment, some kind of compensation, the law of compensation, to reharmonize, or not just harmonize the equation into something that benefits the whole. And I think that when children come, or that when something incredible out of the most atrocious thing, out of the mud, the lotus flower blooms. And so I believe that Maya, my children, I believe the lessons that we learn, your spirituality, your coaching abilities to other, and the connection again with the light that you are, that always has spoken to you, shows us, no matter how many failures you do as humans, existence will prevail, evolution will prevail, the Buddha nature, the Christ nature will prevail, because that's the true nature of reality. So I just wanted to add up on that. So when that happens, and I love that we really like wash the clothes. In Mexico is lavando, echando los trapos al sol. Uh, so this begins to happen. You begin to train, to coach. Tell us about the importance, too, because I love that you said that you you truly recovered who you were, and you had to let go of who you were not, etc. But tell us about the importance of people seeking support, getting training, getting coaching. Why do we need that? If we, if we awaken the master within, why will we need the presence of a teacher, a guide, a master to help us come back to the path?
We always need someone to help us and to reconnect either with ourselves or with higher beings, because alone, I mean, it's not the way. We are not superhuman. We do need help, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to have mentors. You have been one of my biggest mentors for the last years. Yeah, you have. So we do need, we cannot do it by ourselves. When we try to do things by ourselves, that's when ego gets in our way, and that's where we think that we're going to be superhuman, that we can do everything by ourselves. We don't need anyone. We don't need help. And that is the most untrue. That's the biggest lie there is. We do need help. We do need each other. And during the years that I wanted to die and I had this death wish, of course, I was by myself. Even though I had a therapist, the therapist wasn't really there. She really didn't help me. It was like all by myself. When I saw the Virgin Mary once again during my pregnancy, that made me open my eyes. That made me realize that things were not as right, as correct, as nice as I thought they were. They were things that I needed to change. And once my daughter was born and started to grow up and everything, I started to see more clearly what things had to disappear from my life, what I had to let go of my life that wasn't helping me, wasn't enlightening me, wasn't bringing me peace. Of course, I filed for divorce. Of course, I reconnected with my family, because when I was married, it was like I can do it by myself. I don't need anyone. And I started reconnecting with my parents, with my brother, with my grandmother, and with everyone, like in my family, like being part again. And that Maya really helped, because of course they wanted to see the grandchild, they wanted to help her, they wanted to be part of her life as well. So I started reconnecting. At the beginning, it was this reconnection with my family, of telling them how I felt, of expressing that I hadn't been happy, that I had lived really tough years, but that I wanted to do something. I wanted to change. I didn't want to be that person anymore. And so that's how it began. That's how it began. Of course, I got a new therapist. I started to go with someone different that would help me, that actually did help me. And it was really funny because, of course, I would still see these shadows. I would still see sometimes the lights, sometimes nice things, sometimes not so very nice things. And I started to listening to my inner voice. I started to listen and trust my intuition little by little. And one day, out of the blue, my mother told me, you know what? You have really good intuition, because I would say this was going to happen. I think this will happen. Like knowing things before they would become a reality, or knowing things like, oh, I know what car you drive without even you telling me what car you drove, things like those. So I started having these things, and my mom would tell me, you know what? You should do that for a living. You should like expand that knowledge, or make your gift grow, or and you should do this. She was the one that actually pushed me.
And we paid attention to mom.
So I listened to her. I was in a better place by now. So of course I didn't say, no, you don't know nothing about me, just stay away. No, it was the opposite. It was like, well, maybe,
Pache,
yeah,
Pache. Shout out to Pache, the mom of Andrea.
maybe this is nice, because I do like it. And I started remembering what I used to do, with the dream catchers and and the stones and the meditations. And I started like going back to those things little by little, like the readings, and let's do the little ritual in the new moon, and let's write letters and burn them. I started redoing those things that I liked doing before. But it was until COVID came that we were quarantined, and I started to have panic attacks because I didn't know what was going to happen. No one knew what was going to happen. So I started panicking, and once more, Virgin Mary came and helped me like destroy my inner demons with my inner light. She told me that my inner light was always going to be stronger than any darkness, and that I didn't need anyone or anything around me to overcome that darkness, that I could do it by myself, that I just have to believe it. So she helped me throughout this, and throughout this COVID, my mom got in touch with Grace Terry, of course, because they had been friends. And my mom had to tell someone what I was experiencing. So she told Grace about it, and Grace said, I want to talk to her. So I talked to Grace. We had this Zoom. That's where I met her. And since she's an astrologist and she knows about planets and stuff, she did my chart. And she said, of course, it's in your chart. This is your mission in life. This is what you're supposed to do. You have to, they're talking to you, and you just have to listen. Just listen and write them down. Write down what they're telling you.
So let me add something. So just for the people that are listening to the podcast, Grace Terry is an astrologer, an incredible singer of all Latin America. We have had her in our show because just for people to understand what you are sharing about Grace. So you connect with her, and she kind of echoes you what you already know, correct? Because you already
Yes.
know that this is your return. And it seems to me that there's a pattern, that there's a crisis, a catharsis, and then Virgin Mary comes and restores your path. So just because of the time we have right now, and thank you for sharing that. So you begin to recover and restore and really amp up and walk into this path of channeling light to recover your true self and help others. Now, nowadays, you channel, I believe, archangels, the Holy Mother, etc., and you deliver those messages and that coaching and the spiritual support for others, correct?
Yes, that's what I've been doing. Since that call with Grace, I knew that I had to do this. So I did missions in action with you and with Grace and with Alex and Rebe. I did meditation work with Grace as well. I did the 888 with you. So I started building up on this. I started sharing the messages. At the beginning, I would listen to them, write them down, and I would send them via WhatsApp to whoever wanted to hear them or listen to them or read them out. And that was it. And throughout these years, I have been growing. Now I have my Instagram account that is exclusively for this. I've been now translating them because I was doing it only in Spanish. Now I translate them also to English. And that is how that's what I've been doing nowadays. I'm also coaching people. I also coach people because since I know what it is to be in a dark place, since I know what it is to have a death wish, and what it is to recover your inner peace, what it is to recover your light and to trust yourself again, which for me, that's called spirituality. Spirituality is that connection you have with your own soul. That is what I want to share. That is how I want to help others. And that's what I do through my channelings and oracle or tarot readings. I use the cards, I use the decks because the messages that I channel, since they come from these very luminous spheres that we don't always understand them completely, or we always, as humans, it's like they speak a different language. We speak human, and the archangels, the ascended masters, they speak spiritual. So what sometimes those messages, they're cryptic, they're always positive, and sometimes we're like, so, but how? How can I do this? I want something more concrete. I want my to-do list. I want my check boxes. And cards, the decks, help me translate that spiritual language into a human language. It makes it easier for my customers, for my clients, to see exactly what they're lacking, what they have already but are not using, what has to change, what has to stay the same, and eventually where it is that they actually long to go, and they don't even know it. They don't know it consciously. Just their soul knows it. So that is why I use these
I love it.
techniques. That's how I work, and that's how I help others.
Right, that's beautiful, Andy. And we're closing now the podcast, but I love that you use all of these. That's a functional spirituality that we use it as tools. Some people use mantras, some people use crystals. As long as we don't put the power in the object, but we use the object as
Exactly.
a tool, as a gateway. And I love that you use that. I love that you are helping people. I love that you are channeling light in the different frequencies of archangels, masters, ascended masters, that you deliver your content both in English and Spanish, and that you are able to coach people and be the guide. So to turn those dead wishes into life wishes, to have direction, and to channel light in order to recover their true self. So, Andy, thank you so much for being in the show. And we are going to make sure to add your Instagram, your contact information for people to reach out to you and experience your magic, follow you on Instagram. And just to go, we have a little ritual. If you have a small, brief, little blessing for our audience today.
I wish all of you to find that light inside of you, to use it wisely, to always trust in it. And just as Virgin Mary told me, there is no darkness that light cannot overcome.
Amen. Aho. Amen. Ashe. In la que. And yes. All right. Beautiful, Andy. Thank you so much, love. And
Thank
friends,
you.
remember that we are on YouTube too. You can watch us. You can watch the whole shenanigans going on behind the scenes. We're all over where podcasts are. Remember, we're philanthropic. We are supported by you liking, comments, sending us feedback, subscribing in all platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc., 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 and on YouTube too. Please give us a follow, a like, and share. And Andy, thank you from my heart to yours
Thank
for
you,
being.
Yvonne.
I love you. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Un besito. Adios. We hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere where you prefer to listen to your podcast. Make sure to check the links to everything we mentioned in this episode. For more news, future or past episodes, or for any other inquiry, please visit our website at delaflorteachings.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Spirituality Now podcast.